It's funny how being a mated chip sort of. You ever seen two swords that come together, which is like an X and touche? And you, if you've ever seen fencers like frequency fences, Skynet fences, and you have the X two swords. You know, they do what's called a touche, right, with the masks on, and now they're going to go against each other, right? You can take that all the way back in time in the days with swords and all that. Excalibur, right? Disneyland, Keys to the Kingdom. Everyone, Kim Go-Goon mentioned Keys to the Kingdom. King dominates, right? The King's S, Spot of Blood, Flash, right? Ignition point, portals, gates. But I'm going to share this because what I initially decided why I was going to do this is because some of the stuff that I'm putting up here relates to taking accountability and responsibility for who it is that we are, which is what love is that goes on forever, gifting the all creation to the energy we are, what love is that goes on forever, gifting that energy, which is the energy that we use to create what we create with, which becomes a reflection back in our mirror, the love that was used to create it with. So therefore, I'm not experiencing anything less than what love is, that is the energy that I use to create it with, that I am, which is the energy that I use to create it with, that I experience in my mirror. That's simple enough. So if experiencing something in my mirror that isn't what love is, that's a broken arrow. Okay? And that means that's an imbalance, because it's not experiencing the purity of the love, which is the purity of the heart, which is the purity of the fire, which is the purity of the spirit. It is the teacher that is guiding the soul. So the spirit is protecting the soul by virtue of what the soul is learning through the spirit, which is the purity of the light, which is the purity of the love. Okay, so start with that as a baseline. I'm 4 years of age. I experience that. I become aware of that. Now I have everything else I'm going to experience after that. Okay, from 1 minute to the next, 1 second to the next, and the way that the time is described that way. So imagine that you're not experiencing any time because you're not aware of any time. You're only aware of what love is. Okay, because that's what you are in energy, which is the purity of your energy. So now I'm going to couple that with a couple of experiences I've shared before, which is a full fossil ignition, which is to light yourself on fire when you say, metaphorically or euphemistically, I'm pulling the AV jacks out, audio video jacks. I'm done with this, right? Because you realize it's reached a point where it just becomes a waste of energy to even use your energy to experience what you're experiencing through everything that is represented by what ARPANET is, which is the entire internet. Okay, so so when you realize that was a massive dump or upload, if you will, of everything that we experienced here as a result of a system design that came about as a result, we created it. Okay, so it's our mess. That's why parents clean their messes up as a result of what our children do. That's the truth of it. So you can see the evidence of that by what I experienced if you think of it through self-discovery of your own experiences that are informing you of who you are by virtue of what we experience, what we're experiencing being who we are in energy. So I mentioned one time when I went deep into my heart after I had a full fossil ignition and I realized I'd reached a point I want to communicate with the great living spirit of Mother Earth, Mama, Gaia, okay? Give me all your pain and suffering, everything that she has experienced here to raise her spirit, get her vibration up. Because what do you think they try to do to her? Drive her mad, drive her insane. Okay? That's still a real goddess. That's another measurement on a universal scale, let alone a galactic scale. So I cried for 4 days. So here's another measurement you might want to ask yourself, because I asked myself this, because I thought about it. How many people do you know that have ever cried for 4 continuous days because they were able to tap into everything that's been experienced here on this planet, in which a soul has lost one single fractal that you now become aware of? Add up all those fractals and try and come up with an enumerated number. Okay? So imagine that you're in a room and you're crying So this isn't crying for 5 minutes. This isn't even crying for 30 minutes. Imagine yourself crying and letting go of that much pain that's being transferred to you by way of a goddess on a motherboard. Get her up and get her up and get her up and get her up. Now, why that is another reason that I'm not going to go into. Not that I don't want to express it. But it gets into much bigger and larger things that we have to talk about when you start getting into universal templates of design. Okay? Motherboards, networks, communication, DNA-seeded races, and on and on and on and on and on. Okay? And so here I was right down the road one day when I met these two ladies, beautiful ladies at a bus terminal here in Hilo. One gal was wearing a cowboy hat and all kinds of buttons that tell you, boy, she'd been all over the place. She had a backpack on her back, and she had another girl that had a backpack. I thought, whoa, where are you guys from? Because you can read their energy, right? So you know they got a soul left, and they're led by spirit. And so I mentioned to them about going down to La Hoy because there's a beach point down there with a park. They can camp out and enjoy because the energy is beautiful down there, right? And so then they went off, jumped on the bus, and they were headed that way, right? And then I ran into them through a couple other people, one of which is in this house, named Aaron, right? And that's a tragic story. And but I mentioned sort of how that works as well. Remember, he's the one who said, man, I hate my mother, and that's an understatement. Oh, Jesus. So, you know, that's like another check in the box, right? And so when we found this little farm, I ran into Alicia. Her name is Alicia Stanley. You can look her up on Facebook. She's a free spirit. Okay, reminds me of a cat. Okay, right. Cats are fiercely independent. If you want a model for what it's like to be a free spirit, observe a cat. Okay. So anyway, the point in this is tied to the other points of what I've experienced, to share my experiences, because that's what we do. We share what we experience, and we can learn to each other the direction we're all going in together, right? I'm aware of what you're aware of. You're aware of what I'm aware of. And so, when I met her again, her and her girlfriend, with a couple other guys, which was Aaron and Nathan, I mentioned to them about this farm that was right up the road that, for example, you could work 4 hours a day tending to the goats and everything else that was there, and you would have a nice place to stay where you had electricity, you had running water, et cetera, right? Because people come from all over the world to come over to the Big Island here for obvious reasons. Powerful energies here to tap into, particularly healing energies, right? And that's particularly true when the Kilauea Rift was really flowing out to the edge of the rock there that was, you know, going down into the ocean, right? And in the evening, just spectacular stuff. But you could get pretty close and you could experience, wow, man, is my bio voltage going way up. Yeah, those are called memory wipes out of your circuit board. So that's why when I was a child and came out with the first TVs, even before they ever had the remote, and I would tell my parents, that TV's trying to program me. Well, then change the channel, okay, which means change the channel. So whenever a commercial came on, here I am as a little boy going, get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that. Salesman, 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 salesman. They're always wanting their energy. Get out of here, get out of here, get out of here. I'm headed down to the beach to go surfing. I got better things to do than to have to what? Have a relationship with a parasite, because that's what a publication is, that's what a billboard is, that's what the internet is. This. Okay? It came about as a result of fractured souls. Don't let anybody kid you. I know that. But it's not up for me to decide what you believe. That's up to you to believe, and that's the whole point. Okay? As when I was a little child, my consciousness is not held captive by who you are. If you have a spirit that is a teacher within you, working with your soul, then you know that you're on your journey for the reason for which you know that you're on your journey to experience. what you're choosing to experience out of your own free will to do that. But the Spirit is the teacher, which is what love is, right? Which is what allows you to be free, which is the Spirit that is in the light that is free, because that's what it means to be a free spirit, is being what love is. That's your Spirit, the teacher. So therefore, the lessons that you're learning through all of your experiences become your record or your recordings, which are your magnetic recordings. So now you get into how fast that magnet is spinning. Right? So if you want to be a mated chip, light yourself on fire. I know how to do that. I've done it many times, and having been in places like this, wherever I'm experiencing something that's less than what I am, which is what love is, it goes on forever. That's the one. It's a monopole. Right? So now I'm experiencing everything that isn't. Okay? That's how it works. Because how else are we going to protect everything that love creates if we don't have the ability to burn off something that isn't? See how that works? Which means you're the law wherever you come in, because of the love of the speed at which you're running at. How else are you going to be able to protect everything that's here if you're not running faster than something that isn't? Like an AI that's running on fractal light, which is finite light. So when the four of us hooked up down there at the park one day, we decided, hey, let's go up to the property, right? Where they were staying. And so the next thing I know was that she was getting ready to leave with the guy that she was hooked up with. And because I love to spend so much time down the beach and the ocean and the rest of that, that night, her and I, we had we held hands, heart to heart, soul to soul, spirit to spirit. And it was one of the most powerful spiritual experiences